This is a question. This question is only for Africans. This question is only for Africans. When did you guys realize or found out that Jamaica was not in Africa? When did you guys realize or found out that Jamaica was not in Africa?
Jamaica not being in Africa doesn't make sense to me. It's like 77 plus 33.
This is spiritual. The love Africans have for Jamaicans.
Growing up, I used to think that Jamaica was part of Africa. I'm a Nigerian myself, and I don't know why. I always just thought that Jamaica was somewhere in Africa. I don't know why.
Guys, let me ask you. When you think of Jamaica, what comes to your mind? For many people around the world, it is reggae music, Rastafarian culture, and the unmistakable spirit of Bob Marley. But here's something that might surprise you. There are Africans who genuinely grew up believing that Jamaica was in Africa, not metaphorically, not poetically, but geographically. Why? Because to them, or rather for some, Jamaica doesn't just feel connected, it is connected. They see the spirituality, the rhythm, the ceremonies, the warmth, and immediately think, these are my people. This is Africa. And today, guys, I want us to dive into this fascinating belief, the idea of unbroken spiritual umbilical cord between Africans and Jamaicans, a bond so strong that even the lessons of geography can't erase it. From reggae vinyls to ancestral rituals to questions of identity and belonging, we are exploring why Jamaica, for many Africans, is Africa.
South Africans are okay with things not making sense. For example, Jamaica's not in Africa, Haiti's not in Africa, Brazil's not in Africa, but I've come across some South Africans that in theory know this, but in reality, like, they don't compute it or process it, right? For example, I'll tell people about my Jamaican friends, I'll be like, oh my gosh, like, Jamaicans have housed me and made me feel more welcome and helped my transition a lot more than, you know, some African people, and they'll be like, why are you separating Jamaicans from Africans? Is Jamaica not in Africa? I'm like, bro, we were in the same geography class. You know that Jamaica is not in Africa. And then people would have to dig in their knowledge and be like, oh my gosh, in theory, yes, I do know that it's not in Africa, but the way that Jamaican culture, Haitian culture, even some people think that Brazil, not as often Brazil comes up, but some people do think that Brazil is in Africa. Like, they would know it in theory that it's not in Africa, but then practically and realistically, like, their brains just see these cultures, the spirituality within these cultures, their expression, the color, the ceremoniousness, the way that Africans feel loved when they're in these countries, and they'll be like, yeah, this must be an African person, even though the theory we learned in class is cognitively dissonant to that, or it is incongruent to the information that their brain feeds them. And I find that so fascinating. And I think then when you approach the African continent or South Africa, knowing that things make sense not making sense, knowing that people can maneuver the countries in the world in their heads to make sense of identity in the world, I think it lets you approach South African ignorance differently, and South African history and political context differently, because there is a context as to why people think that Jamaica is in Africa.
This is spiritual. The love Africans have for Jamaicans, it's really, really spiritual, people. I know a lot of you are going to think that's crazy, but that is true. It's like you cannot convince an African at some point in their lives that Jamaica is not an African country. They will literally pull out pictures of Jamaicans and they'll say, yeah, and they are African. Then you'll say to them, okay, point where they are in Africa, and then they'll be all blank and they'll be traumatized when they discover that Jamaica is actually an island in the Caribbean. I was traumatized when I discovered that, so I'm talking from experience. So then my ancestors say to me, it's spiritual. The connection between Jamaicans and Africans is spiritual. That connection that broke between African Americans and Africans because of slavery did not break with Jamaicans. It remained like the cord, the umbilical cord between the Africans and the African-Americans. It broke during slavery, but it did not break with the Jamaicans. It remained strong.
Bro, this is so fucking true. Ain't nobody love reggae music like South African uncles and aunties and the grandparents. They love that shit, bruv. I remember my second trip there. I went to Johannesburg and we rented this whole house. And it was about around 2 and something like that in the afternoon. And I went out on the balcony and the neighbors next to me, bruv, all I heard was easy skanking it easy. Oh, pirates, yes, they roll by Buffalo Soldier. And I was like, wait, hold on, wait, what? And the mix, I was listening to the mix. It went on and on and on and on. So I was like, Jamaicans. We have some Jamaicans next to us. So we was going to go out, innit? So I was like, oh, yeah, like, you mans. I was telling everybody. I was like, when we're going past, let's tell, like, you know, the neighbors hi in Jamaica. Bruv. We got out of this house, went up to their house, got to the gate. We saw it. It was two, like, older couple. Like, they looked like they were in, like, their 40s, 50s, 60s. So went up to them. I agreed to them in patois, bruv. I was like, wow, go on, uncle. Like, I was chatting patois. Please tell me why. This man replied back to me in a South African accent. I said, hello, hi, excuse me. He's like, yes, I'm South African. It was 2 full South African uncle and aunties, bruv. And they were in the front garden dancing the fuck like ain't nobody's business. And then, you know, the funny thing is, like, you will go into, like, certain areas and you'll just hear them be beating reggae, bruv. It's not a joke. I think Bob Marley performed in South Africa one time, bruv. I can't remember. But, bruv, they love that shit. I don't think Jamaican people appreciate reggae music the way they do. They love that shit.
Now, let's start with the most visible connection, reggae. Across South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, and beyond, Bob Marley isn't just music. His family, grandparents, uncles, aunties blast reggae so often that it's woven into the fabric of African neighborhoods. One speaker even joked that Africans might love reggae more than Jamaicans themselves. And, you know, this constant soundtrack, paired with album covers showing Malay as a Black African man, made it confusing, almost unbelievable to be told Jamaica wasn't in Africa. But the connection goes deeper than music. Africans describe the spirit of Jamaican culture as undeniably African. They point to the color, the expression, the ceremoniousness, and most importantly, the sense of welcome. For Africans, stepping into Jamaican culture doesn't feel foreign. It feels like home. This is the emotional recognition overrides the logic of geography. And that is why so many say, even if the map disagrees, Jamaica is in Africa. Now, guys, let's dig deeper into spiritual side of this belief, because this is where it becomes truly powerful. Some Africans explain the unshakable bond between Jamaica and Africa through the idea of the unbroken umbilical cord. During slavery, many believe the cord that tied Africans to African Americans was severed, symbolically and spiritually. But Jamaicans, the cord remained intact. How? According to ancestral stories, it was preserved intentionally. Jamaican ancestors, particularly women described as metaphysical scientists, performed rituals to keep the bond alive. These women weren't just spiritual leaders. They were guardians of connection. They believed that one day their descendants would find their way, back home. And so they worked tirelessly to keep that tether strong. And so, guys, even generations later, Africans feel that Jamaicans remain tagged into the source. The music, the spirit, the ceremonies all feel like a continuous of Africa's own heartbeat. This belief explains why some Africans experience real cognitive dissonance. In the classroom, they learn Jamaica is in the Caribbean, but outside, in their neighborhood, They see, they hear and feel something totally different. Their heartbeats tell them this is African. Now, guys, let's talk about identity and belonging, because this story has another side, right? Within Jamaica itself, identity isn't always so easily shared. For descendants born outside of the island, say in America or Britain, acceptance is complicated. Some Jamaicans insist that if you weren't born and grow in Jamaica, you are not truly Jamaican. Even if your parents or grandparents were, you're simply labeled American or British. This leaves many descendants feeling, disconnected, unaccepted by the very culture they identify with. Compared to this Africa, Africans in general are more open to embracing Jamaicans. In fact, they often see Jamaicans as their brothers and sisters without hesitation. The spiritual bond erases the need for proof of birthplace. Jamaicans to Africans, they are Africans, and that contrast is striking. On one hand, Jamaican descendants outside the island sometimes struggle to claim their identity. Okay. On the other hand, Africans themselves are ready to claim Jamaicans as part of their own. This, duality highlights something profound. Identity isn't only about geography or passports. It's also about how people see you and how deeply they feel beyond. Think about it. Africans aren't basing their acceptance of Jamaicans on blood tests, documents, or legal recognition. They are basing it on spirit, music, shared expression, and ancestral memory. They are blasting it on love. They are basing it on love, rather. And perhaps this is what makes the Jamaican African bond so unique. It's not just history. It's not just shared trauma. It's not even just cultural overlap. It's the sense that despite oceans and centuries, something remain whole. The rituals, the music, the warmth, the spirituality, these have all carried across generations to create a kinship so strong it overrides maps, schools, and national borders. So when you hear an African say, "I thought Jamaica was in Africa," it's not ignorance. It's testimony. It's proof of a spiritual truth that geography simply can't capture. And guys, maybe, just maybe, it's a reminder for all of us. Sometimes the bonds that matter most aren't the ones we can see on a map, but the ones we can feel in our soul. Guys, drop a comment. Let me know what are your thoughts. Also, remember to subscribe, like, and share as well. And until next time, bye-bye.